Hey everyone, this is Jane with Barlow Herbal, and happy Sunday, July 7th of 2024. Now I have a beautiful message for you today, and it started with my journaling this week where the first thing that came into me was a question. Are you willing to see the gifts? Now I meant this in a really broad spectrum of ideas because there are gifts, of course, always in really hard times. And my word not just this last 6 months, but really the last 4.5 years has been interesting rather than hard, because these times are interesting. And my whole thought process when I wrote this question is, am I willing to see the gifts in these interesting times, right? And then I wrote this: once you come into this realization, you are free. I think we enslave ourselves, our minds, our thoughts, our actions. We literally put handcuffs on ourselves because we don't see the gifts and the things that happen for us. And I know that's a common thing with anybody who does any kind of personal development. Instead of something happening to you, it's happening for you. And I also heard the use of the word because. This is happening because of me, because I'm putting myself out there. I'm working on all the things I want to work on. So then this came in right after that. Responsibility equals freedom, and freedom equals responsibility. So when you take responsibility for your actions, your thoughts, your emotional response, all those things, when you take responsibility, it equals freedom. And then on the same side of the coin, you have freedom equals responsibility. If you're truly free, you have to be responsible. You have to be responsible for everything. So then what really came in as I kind of sat there with that kind of really beautiful, easy equation is 4 words and four steps. The first one is a realization. And this could be of anything. The second one is awakening, because when you realize certain things, you awaken to truths. The third thing is responsibility, and then that leads to freedom. So the theme of this video and the theme of my journaling for this week was based on realization, awakening, responsibility, and then freedom. It's like a four-step plan. So number 1 is, and these are all things that I wrote down while I was journaling. Number 1 is realization of truths, navigating those in your life that don't have the same realizations. You know, this is really big. I've talked to people that are in total anguish because they've had realizations and awakenings, and the person or the people they love have not had the same realizations. And it's, as a person who's been through this myself, it is one of the most painful things that you'll go through until you have certain other realizations. So navigating those in your life that don't have the same realizations, as far as worldview, things like politics and things like religion. These are things that are so deeply ingrained in our psyche, in our childhood, in our culture, that when you start to have certain truths drop in, and you know to the depths of your core, your soul, your absolute consciousness, that the realizations and the things that you come to realize are things that were untrue but you thought were true, it is so incredibly painful to go through this realization and awakening by yourself, okay? So this is not easy. You want to share what you learned and what you know to be true, okay? You want others you love to be awakened so that you can go through this rocky journey together, because then you can share the exciting stuff too. So I write this because, you know, I'll be perfectly authentic here, because I think what happens, and I'm authentic, but there are things that, you know, I don't necessarily share a lot of personal things. I might share kind of surface personal things as far as, you know, okay, so let me just say, me and my husband are very, very different. We were raised on completely opposite sides of the political spectrum. We were raised opposite in religion. I was raised in a strong Christian religion, and he was raised with no religion. And then when the pandemic hit, we were on completely opposite viewpoints of what was happening in the world. And it's fascinating because, I've always kind of been in realizations of the way the world works because of my parents. This was just the way it was. And it really didn't bother me, or it didn't even occur to me that my husband felt the same way until COVID hit. Then it was like, how can you not see? How can you not see? And honestly, it was just a matter of he just didn't care, or he just didn't want his world to be rocked, or whatever that might be. And I have some very dear friends. Actually, I have several couples, and one dear couple in particular who, actually two, and they're almost exactly identical, that have religion as their base of their marriage, their relationship, the way they raise their children, the way they walk through this life, the things that they do on weekends, like church and service and all of those things. And one of each of these couples had realizations about things in their religion that they didn't feel resonated with them anymore. They felt like they were untruths, and they've had this awakening. And they're a person who they love more than anything else has not had this awakening. And I will tell you, this is kind of how I've been able to navigate this, because it's the hardest thing that I've ever done, is going through something so life-changing on a global scale as what happened during 2020, and to have the person that I sit with every day see the world completely different. What I realized, because I went through a lot of angst, we had a lot of fighting, and then we had a lot of silence, where it was like, okay, we obviously can't talk about this, we're just going to be silent. And I went on lots of walks. I spent a ton of time outside, I was so grateful for my health and my ability to just be outside and put my jacket on if it was dead of winter and go out for a walk. I'm grateful for that. But I've come to this big, huge realization that our journeys are all different, and I don't need to push my awakening on anyone that I love. I get to sit in my truth and be grateful. And then I get to find other people that I want to share the excitement of the awakening with and the realizations. And I think that's the thing that these two particular couples that I'm thinking of, that's probably the hardest thing, is because it's not just about, look how this is untrue and look how horrible this is. It's about, but look at how exciting this is. Look at how amazing it is to find this out. There's a big, beautiful, bright sunshine to finding these things out, because then it changes the decisions you make. It changes the way you walk through the world, and you want your person to walk through the world with you like that, okay? So many of the people I've reached out to and have reached out to me have left their partners, their marriages, their families, and their friends. And I will tell you, it was something that there were tempting times when I just thought, I can't do this. I can't walk through the world with a person who does not see the things that are happening, because if you go one way and you go along with whatever BS they're throwing at us, then it affects me too. So that's, I think, where part of having these realizations and awakenings can really be difficult, because it's like, well, the decisions that you make are going to affect me. And I will tell you that in my own personal experience, that this has been true. This has been true for me. And I won't go into details about that in this video. So the number 2 thing is the awakening. So the first one is the realization. And you have this, you want to share, you want to help the other person see, and their journey is so different, and it's also okay. You have to be in this quiet place of knowing And the epiphanies, the things that you uncover, have to be shared with others. They have to be shared with others who are on the same awakening journey as you are. Okay, and it's not to discount anyone else's journey. Okay, the second is awakening. We've been talking a lot about it, and it's because it's true. This is what I wrote. But there are layers. There are lots of layers to awakening. It's, I think when you go through a first layer of awakening, which I did as a teenager, I had a big religious awakening, and I didn't fully step out as a teenager. It took me until my mid-30s before I did that, but I had a huge rocking of my religious world when I was a teenager, and one of the layers is this: they're emotional: anger, hurt, frustration, fear, and more anger. And that's super normal. And I think that's normal with anything that you find out that you thought was true that turned out to be not true. You go through this emotional layer, and then you come out the other side, and there's another layer, and then there's another layer, and then there's another layer, and you start to peel back all of these layers, and you start to realize that out the other side there's peace on the other side. And there's no need to try to convince anyone else of your perspective, your worldview, what you see. And honestly, I've really come to realize that other people's truths are their deepest, most beautiful held truths to them. And especially when it comes to religion. I think religion helps people with community and service, their connection to God. There's no doubt in my mind that religion, for an organized religion, I have an absolute knowing that I am part of God's source, and I don't need to go to a church or a religion to help me do that. And I also think that religions bring beautiful community with each other. So there are many, many layers, and I think after all of the layers and all of the emotional layers that you peel back, then out the other side of your awakening is a really beautiful part where you just get to be, you get to sit in it. So as you keep going and learning, forgiving yourself too, you have more realizations, this time on a deeper soul level of who you really are. You realize I don't have to try to convince anyone. I get to have this experience and be grateful for all the layers that peeled away while I was still a living, breathing human being with my consciousness awakening. And I get to experience this world as that awakened person, this awakened being. And that's really beautiful. Then the emotions turn into calmness, love, presence, and beingness. Then you simply enjoy the learning and the expanding. You simply start to enjoy. Oh, here's something else I'm finding out. And it's interesting that when you get to that second layer, that big layer of awakening, you no longer feel the need to judge anyone and their journey. I will be honest, I judged my husband hard. And we had many arguments, just me trying to say, look, how can you not see? Read this, watch this, please look at this. How can, and all I was doing was hurting. It was hurting us. It was hurting both of us. But now I find something that I'm just learning, and I'm expanding. And I also now search out different things that help expand my soul's growth and expand my capacity for love. These are now the things that I search out for, because if you've gone down rabbit holes of what is happening in our political world, not just in the US, but all around the world, what's happening with different atrocities that human beings commit on other human beings, you go down these different rabbit holes and you look back at history that's been written to fit the narrative, and you start to really look at these things. It gives you what I figure it's given me is it's given me the ability to make better and different choices. simply because I feel like I see the way the world works. I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go this way. And I'm going to focus my attention over here. And I'm going to look at all the things that I can contribute and I can create, because that's where I want to be. And so when I find out something new that feels uncomfortable and feels a little, maybe would have been more shocking, I sit with it. I think about it. I think, how can I help change it? And then I think, how can I make the world a better place in the areas that I can affect, right? So what I find too is I can listen with interest, amusement, and discernment, right? And here's some of the things that I've really been enjoying. So I've been enjoying learning about astrology, more about meditation, Christ consciousness. And to me, this is what lands in my soul so beautifully, right? And I get to look at things that are happening and watch other people on the different little platforms and the people that I follow. I get to learn from them, but I also get to be amused by them. You know, there's a comedian whose platform blew up during, especially the beginning of COVID. And I met him, and I've actually helped his wife with some health issues probably 8 or 9 years ago. But he's pushes the limit. And sometimes when I just want a little funny, way out there, crazy bit of humor that might offend some people, but I know this person and I've met him a couple times, and his name is JP Sears, and if you know who he is, he maybe if you've run across him, you might be highly offended, or you might find him amusing. So instead of being triggered, I can listen with interest and amusement and discernment. And this is with anything. One of my sisters sends me something, and I might go, okay, that's really interesting, and I don't have to be bothered by it. Okay, so the third thing in this thing is responsibility. And then I have to think about this. For what? What am I responsible for? And then I wrote this. Basically, everything. I'm 100% responsibility. It's like when you ask someone, how do you show up in your marriage? Is it 50% your spouse and 50% you? No, we each get to bring 100% of responsibility for how we show up in the relationship. So we are responsible for basically everything. What we say, how we say it, how we feel, our emotional response, how we treat our body, how we show up, what our habits are, if we're open-minded and calm, if we're doing the work every day, if we practice what we preach. And then I wrote forgiveness, gratitude, joy, love, and peace. I'm responsible for all of these things. How do I show up? What do I say? How do I say it? Am I saying it with kindness and compassion? Am I being triggered by somebody cutting me off in traffic? Am I staying in a place of love and non-judgment? Where you don't. It doesn't serve anybody to get your panties in a bunch, and it's extremely uncomfortable. Okay, now the last part of this is freedom, because all of these, when you have realizations that lead to an awakening, that lead to personal responsibility, that all points to our end goal, which is freedom. And we can't have freedom without responsibility, because those two are tied up. You realize that through the awakening process, you and only you are responsible for your soul's journey and life path. This is ultimate freedom. No one else is responsible for you. Something your parents did, something your grandma did, what happened to your ancestors, that's victim mentality. That is not freedom. That is staying in a place of being stuck and staying a victim. So you realize that through the awakening process, you and only you are responsible for your soul's journey and life path. This is ultimate freedom. What does freedom really mean to me? First, freedom from fear and emotional stress. I had to really kind of think about, what does freedom mean? And being a person who was born in the United States, whose parents, grandparents, and my history goes way back. I think back in our genealogy, there's English, there's German. I have 3 full-blooded Native American siblings. One has passed on, but I have this beautiful family, and I have this deep love of my country. I love America. I love where I was born. Every day I'm grateful. This is something that was instilled in me and my siblings by my dad mostly. My mom was, of course, all aboard. She was busy taking care of us and raising us, but my dad made a point to point out and to give gratitude. Even in our prayers, our family prayers we would have, he would be grateful. He would express gratitude for being in what he considered the greatest country to be born in. And I feel that same thing. And that's what freedom means to me on a level of being a citizen of a country. But freedom, what does it really mean to me? First, freedom from fear and emotional stress. Because if you're not afraid and you're vibrating in love, that's freedom. If you're in fear, you're in chains. You are enslaved. Free to keep my heart open, especially when others do or say something that triggers me. I am free to respond how I practice to respond. This is why there are layers, because there's layers that we get to practice on. Learning that I am responsible for whether or not I get triggered. So I get to, I get to practice that. And I'm not always perfect at it, but I will tell you, the saying that practice makes perfect is very, very true. So my life is far from perfect. And I ask myself, what is perfect anyway? I'm like all of you. I have family things, I have business things, and I have relationship things. I think it's easy to come on here and talk about all my experiences and talk about this and talk about that. But I want you to know that I am just like you. I have things. I have tough things. I have, we all have this messy life. And it's supposed to be messy. It's part of the fun of being a human being, right? Freedom is doing the best you can and not taking on the emotional burdens of others. So this was what really came through for me when I was asking myself, what does freedom really mean to me? Okay? Freedom is doing the best you can and not taking on the emotional burdens of others. You can have empathy, you can have compassion, you can give service to those who need it, but you do not need to take on and absorb the emotional burdens of others. This is a beautiful lesson to learn and to implement, because that is a piece of what freedom looks like. The constant work, physical meditation, reading, and journaling, and the realization that we can each stand up for ourselves, and we can stand up for what freedom means to us, right? So that's where I ended this. That was where I ended this week's journaling. So I think, let's just wrap it up right there. I think that when we go through this awakening process, because we have realizations of things that we know that aren't true, it is our responsibility. It's no one else's responsibility. And I would encourage you, if you are in a relationship, especially a partner, spouse relationship, where maybe you're the person who's had some realizations and some awakenings, or maybe it's your person who's having, some awakenings on something that maybe is disturbing them. And they want you to really listen. And, I would say, first, be willing to sit and listen. This comes from deep experience. This is almost daily experience of almost not staying in my marriage. And I will say, if I could go back and handle myself a little bit differently, of course I would. I mean, hindsight is always. But I think that if someone is having some life-changing moments and it goes against what you believe and feel is true, and it goes against the way you want to walk through this world, I would say take your person and really truly listen, and listen with love, and give them your undivided attention and respond. And then I would say, as the person, if you are the person who is different than what you were when you got into this relationship, that you give so much compassion to your person, because maybe that's not their path, it's not their journey. And I would say, I feel like I've fully survived out the other side of sitting on polar sides of worldview, political view, what's happening with the shifts in the world right now, and all the things in the rabbit holes I've gone down. You know, I used to know there's a lot of things I knew already, and I knew we differed, but we just didn't really talk about it. And then it's like, okay, well now this is going to start affecting me. Anyway, I could keep going on about this, but I would love to know what you think about this. You know, I think that this can really change the game, because we need to be together. We need to realize that a lot of these things that are being thrown at us are distractions. And once we find out certain truths that hit us in our heart center as these are truths, these feel, I can tell to the depths of my bones that this is true, then we come to a peace about it, and we take responsibility for how we walk through the world and the decisions we make. And part of this is taking care of your physical body, taking care of your emotional well-being, self-care, self-love. There's never been a more important time, and I'm not saying don't take care of your family, don't take care of your responsibilities, but I'm saying take care, because I think our health in the coming years that are, you know, even in the near future, having autonomy of our health and not needing our medical system and the drugs and all the things is going to be a huge piece of freedom that we are going to experience or not experience. So my encouragement is to take care of this beautiful vessel. This is what we're jumping up and down when we got chosen to come down here. This is what we wanted. We wanted this physical body so we can experience, and we can't fully experience unless we're as healthy as we individually can be, because everyone is different. We all have different challenges and different things. So I would love to know what you think about this. I think this is a really beautiful message that this week's journaling felt really awesome for me. So I hope you have a beautiful second week in July. We've got some nice hot days here, and we've been enjoying some swimming pools, and I've been enjoying the mountains, and I've reached a full-on place of gratitude. So thank you so much for being here today, and I hope you have an amazing week ahead.